Hi guys, Miss Costilla here. First video we're going to do is a review video on place value. Either write these notes down on a piece of paper, or if you have a spiral or a composition book you're not using, you can take the notes in there. When you're done with the video, you're going to take a quiz on Google Classroom, just like we do when we were doing regular homework. If you will take a second and pause the video and go ahead and write down this chart right here. This chart is one you've seen before. All it does is show you the connection between the whole numbers and the decimals. Remember, the ones place was the building block. It has no match over in the decimals. The tens have the tenths, the hundreds have the hundreds, and if we were to put thousand right here, the thousands would have the thousandths place. And this actually continues on in both directions, with the ones being the building block. This is another type of place value chart that you've seen before. This one's actually a little bit better for actually putting digits into the boxes so that you can see exactly what place it's in. Remember, the decimal separates the whole numbers from the decimals, and the ones is the building block. Okay, he doesn't have any match. If you notice down here, they all have their matches with the whole numbers and the decimals. So this is the ones place. We know this is the tens place, so his match is the tenth. So we go put the tens in, and over in decimals would be the tenths. Same thing happens for the hundreds place and the hundredths, and then the thousands place and the thousands. I would also pause your video and go ahead and draw this chart down to help you. Now we're going to review expanded notation. Just think of expanded notation as stretching out a number so that you can see the value of actually every single digit in the number. We're going to look at the number 3,019 and 62 thousandths, and we're going to practice writing it in expanded notation. So what you do is you look at the first digit, and every digit after it can turn into zeros. So I have a 3 there, and all of these guys turn into zeros if they're not already. You don't have to put the decimal place on this. So I've got 3,000 plus. In my hundreds place, there's a 0. I can put it as a 0, or I can just skip on to the next one. There's a 1 in the tens place, so I would write it like this. Then there's a 9 in the ones place. And now I'm going to move into the decimals. Notice with my whole numbers, I didn't report any of the decimals yet. There's actually a 0 in the tens place, so I don't have to write that down. There's a 6 in the hundreds place, so you actually write it just like this, decimal 06. If you want to put a 0 in the whole number place, that's fine, you can. And then the last digit we have to worry about is this 2. He's in the thousandths place, so he's worth 2,000, so I need to make sure it says 2,000ths. So no whole numbers. Put 0 in the tenths place and in the hundreds place, and then put a 2 in the thousandths place. So this shows me the value of every single digit that's present in here, not including the zeros because you don't have to report them. All right, comparing decimals, we either use the less than symbol, the greater than symbol, or the equal symbol to compare. We're going to line up the decimal points. So I'm going to take this guy right here, and I'm just write this one right underneath it, lining up my place value, so that I can compare place by place. And then I'm going to look. I notice they are both the same here, so that doesn't help me, which is the tens place. They both have a 4 in the ones place, so that doesn't help me. Then I look right here in the tens place. I notice he is a 6 and he's 0. So I know that 6 tenths are greater than 0 tenths. So 6 is greater than that 0. So therefore 34 and 6 tenths is greater than 34 and 6 hundredths. A lot of you make the mistake of saying, oh, there's 4 digits, he must be bigger. It has nothing to do with how many digits. It has to do with the value of the digits. That same idea can be used for ordering decimals. I'm going to line them up by their decimal points. Then I'm also going to put in placeholders or trailing zeros actually, so that I can see the digits place by place. So that purple 0 is actually a trailing 0. It didn't change the value of the number at all. So now I'm going to compare place by place, and I see they all have 3s in the ones place, so that doesn't help. And then in the tens place, I see a 9, a 9, and a 0. Which one's smallest? Because we're going least to greatest. This one right here is. So he is the first one I would put in my list. So I'm done with him. And then I look, and these both have 9s in the tens place, so that doesn't help me. Then I look and see there's a 0 in the hundreds place and a 1 in the hundreds place. 0 is less than 1, and I'm doing least to greatest, so this is the next number I would write down. And that leaves me with 3 and 91 hundredths as the greatest number. Look at each individual number. The number of digits does not determine its value. You have to look at each place value. All right, the last thing we're going to review is rounding. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, let it soar, or we actually say raise. And what that means is if it's a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 that's doing the helping out, you're not going to change the value. If it's a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you're actually going to change the value by 1. So let's look at this first one. It says round to the nearest tenth. So I have to know my tenths place, and I know my tenths place is right here. So I'm going to go next door and ask the 6 to help out. Well, the 6 falls right in this group, so that means I'm going to raise the score. So that 0 actually turns into a 1. And then every digit after it would just kind of disappear. So 35 and 1/10 would be what I round this actual number to. On this other one over here, it says round to the nearest hundredth, so I have to know my hundredths place. I go next door and see that it's a 3, which is in the let it rest. So the 4 is not going to change, so I would actually have 6 and 24 hundredths as my final answer when I round. And you notice when I say these final numbers, they actually say the place value that I was rounding to. And that is the end of this video. Now you can go take your quiz on Google Classroom.